Welcome, everybody, to Come Back to Love Radio. I'm Robyn Vogel. I'm your host, and we are on Dream Visions 7. You can listen to this radio show every week on Thursdays at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time. This is the show where we explore relationship and intimacy and the things that get in the way of those two that are so near and dear to our hearts. And we have a big focus on self-love. We know that all love that we share with the world starts from within and expands outward. I am so happy to be here as your host. Welcome to new listeners this week. Welcome to listeners that have been tuning in every week. Thank you. You are welcome to subscribe, to download, and you can listen to Dream Vision 7 and the Come Back to Love radio show anywhere, anytime, which is the most amazing piece. You can download it. As I said, you can listen live while you're taking a walk, while you're driving in your car, and you can ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 radio. I'm so happy to have a special guest here this week. There's always inspiring stories, tips, and tools that support all of us in coming back to love. Today I have Dr. Susan Bernstein, who is the owner of Divorce Coach Plus and has 10 years of experience as a certified divorce coach and a certified, get this one, high conflict divorce coach. We're going to talk about that. She's a full-time single mom of 3 children and wrote a chapter in an international best-selling book called Soul Parent. She earned many degrees, bachelor's, master's, and a doctorate in education, leadership, and child development, and was a school teacher, administrator, and college professor before entering the divorce professional world. This background helps her clients immensely in custody battles and parenting plans, including her specialty of divorce with families that have a special needs child. I've known Susan for a little bit of time now, maybe a couple of years. And what I know about Susan is that she is, first of all, highly, highly professional in her work realm. But as she has told me a couple of times in the last couple of days, she doesn't ever feel like she's working, even though she's working, I'm going to say 60 to 80 hours a week, because she loves her work so much that she just never actually feels like it's work. And I have to say, I agree with that. Like having a business called Come Back to Love, where I support people in healing from heartbreak, from loss, from divorce, from death, from wherever the losses were in their lives, from trauma in the past, healing those pieces and returning to love with themselves and with other people. It's such a joy to do the work that I never feel like I'm working. So I'm with you there, Susan. Welcome to the Come Back to Love radio show today. It's so nice to have
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Robyn. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. It's really interesting. You are, for this season, you are, I think, my first guest that is in the divorce, specifically in the divorce realm. We've had lots of other topics at the beginning of this year, and we're moving into actually a segment where I have a few different divorce professionals. And I've been sitting with and thinking about how it so relates to Come Back to Love. I mean, first of all, it's how I got to do this work, which I won't tell my story right now, but it's part of my path and part of the way that Come Back to Love was born. So, yeah, so I'd love to hear, I'd like to always start actually with like how you got into this field and what brought you to the passion of this work that you do.
Absolutely. The short version, as you mentioned, I'm a mom of 3. By trade, I was an educator. And with my doctorate in education, besides being a school teacher and administrator and college professor, I was able to hang up my own shingle and be an education consultant. When I went through my own divorce more than 10 years ago, I thought, why me? This is very high conflict, custody battles, hidden money, domestic abuse, very severe special needs child, my oldest of 3. Why me? I wanted to kind of just hide under the covers. And I said, I had an epiphany. Maybe it's so I can help others. So I switched from the world of education consulting to divorce consulting. And I didn't know about the certified divorce coach program until almost 2 years into it, heard about that, went through it, now teach for two of the programs and have six divorce coaching certificates. So really to
Mm.
make a difference, to take the lemons that life threw at me and make lemonade out of it, and to help get other people through it. I had an amazing divorce attorney, but that was it. There was no team. And to realize, hey, going through it, if you can have the support and save money, that's ideal. And that's what coaches do. They give you the support and they help you save, on legal fees as well.
Yes, very true. Very true. I always say that I wish I had a team when I went through
Yeah.
divorce, which was in 2004. Right now we're into 2025. And both of us are connected with an organization called Vesta,
Yeah.
which I haven't introduced to my radio listeners yet. But Vesta, maybe you want to say what Vesta is, just to say it out loud.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Vesta started 12 years ago in Massachusetts and moved to California and spread throughout the country. It's an organization that takes legal professionals, financial professionals, emotional support professionals, and residential professionals together to help give information, webinars to people going through divorce. And our Vesta's goal is to educate and empower people in it so they know they're not alone, to help them navigate it and to help them get to that next chapter of bliss that they want and they deserve.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for that wonderful introduction because it's really important and so necessary in our world. And one of the things I was going to say, which most people say, is I wish that Vesta were in existence, 20 years ago when I was going through divorce, and it would have been so incredibly supportive.
Yes,
Um, yeah,
I agree. I agree.
yeah, yeah. So it's important what you said about having support. And for those of you listening today that are either have been through a divorce and are on the other side, I think you're going to find this conversation really interesting. Or maybe you're someone who's contemplating divorce and don't really know, should I stay or should I go? I think you're going to find today's conversation interesting. And for those of you that are right in the middle of the process, absolutely, like this is a conversation to listen to, and especially to know about Susan's work because your work is, it feels to me energetically and also, from what I know, it feels so deep and so it's funny the word thorough is coming to me. It's like it feels like you hold a very big space for the process, especially like the intensity. Most people are running the other direction when they hear high conflict.
Yeah.
As a therapist, a coach, or, any kind of professional, when they hear high conflict, they're like, no, thank you. And you're like, bring it on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about that and what the process is like and what's possible on the other side. I have witnessed as a long-term couples therapist in, not really a prior life, but a prior life. I've seen so many variations. Yeah. So I'm curious.
Okay. Okay. So, to make a divorce labeled high conflict, it really only takes one individual, right? But both parties are clumped together. Oh, that's a high conflict couple. But normally it's only one. And high conflict can be, like we mentioned, custody battles, hidden money, and or domestic abuse. And what happens is when you have a high conflict divorce, it's not amicable. Likely you can't mediate. Mediation doesn't occur if safety is an issue, and mediation doesn't occur if financial disclosure does not happen. And so when you have those components and you have to litigate, right there, it's escalated. And litigation means a longer time and a lot more money, right? And so attorneys often can get burnt out from a high conflict client because they are constantly in crisis dealing with their ex, who is truly the high conflict one. And normally their ex is someone who is unstable, toxic, often very narcissistic. And so what happens is that person wants to trigger the person. They want to harm, whether it's physically or emotionally or coercive, the person they're dealing with. And that person's constantly running to their attorney. They did this. They told the children that. They did this with the money. What do we do? And so attorneys can easily get burned out. They have more than one client and they went to law school for a reason, right? Not to deal with the emotional aspects. So when you have a coach who is specifically trained in high conflict, who knows how to de-escalate, who knows how to help the client gain clarity, who knows also how to help the client come up with a radical acceptance mindset, right? What is realistic? You're not going to keep the house and the pension and the children 100% of the time. That's not realistic. So having a certified high conflict divorce coach who can walk them through it, who can be available nights and weekends when the attorney's not, who can help them figure out a plan to email or go into their attorney or mediator. If for some reason they use a mediator, some mediators, very few and far between, but some do take high conflict divorce. They caucus and keep them in different rooms, and they are trained to handle that to get through it. And so often pre-divorce can be a nightmare with a high conflict person, right? You really need to get your ducks in order. So as a coach, helping that client, if they know they're divorcing someone unstable, whether it's an addiction issue, a personality disorder, or anger management issues, helping them really with the pre-divorce, getting the financials in order and setting the children up for success. During divorce, making sure that they're getting through it because it is going to be long and dragged out and spiteful. And then post-divorce abuse is a real thing. And what we can do during divorce to prevent and minimize the post-divorce issues. So all of that, acting in a team way with their attorney to get them to that place that they want.
Wow. So many pieces there. So many places I could pull out. I actually want to go back to, thank you for that. Um, Definitely some new information there for me. I want to go back to the narcissistic piece. Of course,
Yeah.
in the mental health realm, everybody's talking about that right now and trying to figure out, is my partner narcissistic? Maybe some people are asking, am I, not I, Robyn, but they're asking themselves, am I narcissistic? But there is a lot of talk, and there's also a lot of sort of throwing that word around. And I think it might be helpful for people that are trying to assess what's going on in their own relationship is so helpful. And it's hard to see when you're in it, as maybe you've experienced, Susan, that referred to your own experience. Often people they're just living their lives. They're in their relationship. They think it's normal, what's happening, and they don't recognize, oh, wait a minute, there's abuse here, or abuse also can have a range, right? Something can feel abusive. There can be direct abuse. But anyway, I wonder if you can talk about that just in the name of kind of supporting listeners in identifying what's happening in their own relationship.
Great question for your listeners. So there are different types of narcissists, and often someone realizes, wait, my spouse or soon to be ex-spouse looks like or appears to be a narcissist. And there is a difference if someone has narcissistic characteristics or tendencies versus if they actually have the diagnosis of a narcissist. On the same note, even if someone has the diagnosis, it's not an automatic, oh, now you get to keep the children 100% of the time, right? So some people want that labeled, and the label is neither here nor there. But what happens is during a relationship with a narcissist, you question, is this normal? Is this healthy? Why am I blaming myself? Why are they threatening me? And then when I question it, why are they gaslighting me? Why are they trying to manipulate, whether it's finances or whether it's the children or whether it's any daily activities? And so what I talk to people about is, instead of saying to the judge or even your attorney, my ex is a narcissist, because 90% of people going through a divorce feel that way. I talk about profiling your narcissist. And so I do a little activity with the clients, whether it's a man or a woman, because it could be either, right? Narcissists are not only men. There's
For
many
sure.
women that are narcissists.
Yes.
And so to profile your narcissist, I say, I want you to list all the negative things your ex did in the last 18 months or soon to be ex. And then
Or
I
just
want,
partner, right?
yes,
Just,
partner
yeah.
also, correct, because
Hmm.
you're right. Then I want you to circle. So only an 18-month time period. We're not going back 6 years, right?
Yeah.
Last year and a half. Then I want you to circle anything that is close to the line of abuse or close to the line of neglect or something that is mouth dropping, right? Like jaw open,
Mm.
like, I can't believe
I
that.
can't believe that
And
happened. Hmm.
yes, and then I want you to rank the ones you circled in top priority. And that is how you're going to profile your narcissist. Not going to your attorney or judge and say, this, my ex is a narcissist, but going and
Yeah.
saying, I want to tell you 4 things that this person did recently. And when you
Mm.
use those top 4 things, they will understand who you're dealing with. Because the concept is not necessarily to label them, but to let the people know what you're up against and who you're dealing with and why this is a high conflict divorce.
Hmm. Interesting. So I'm going to broaden that a bit because it's a great exercise. So just for those listening I mean, it's a great exercise, period.
Yeah.
For anybody who's in a relationship or even contemplating being in a relationship with somebody,
Yeah.
to take a brief amount of time. So I like what you said, 18 months. If it's a shorter relationship, then we'll give it 6 months. And write down the things that have been challenging and really look at them. Look for themes, right? Look for, like you said, look for whether that feels neglectful or whether it feels or has an element of something that feels abusive or manipulative or like gaslighting. Oh, gaslighting. Don't get me started. um, and kind of see what the patterns are. And it's so helpful to have that awareness, no matter whether you're headed to, a judge to deal with a high conflict divorce or whether you're contemplating being in relationship with someone. It's so easy to have eyes closed and not eyes wide open. It's so easy to see that there's red flags on the left and the right, but kind of keep moving forward for other reasons that have to do with our own histories and essentially around attachment and what keeps us in relationship. So, yeah, I just want to broaden that exercise because I think it's so, so valuable for anybody
Yes.
to really look. And then if you're not in a high conflict situation, right, take it to your partner, sit down. I love this exercise for me that I teach and that I practice. I call it check-in, which is a very fancy name, but it basically involves sitting down on a couch or sitting in 2 chairs or across the table. If you're able to do this, of course, in high conflict situations, you're probably not. But just having like a dedicated check-in time, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to just talk things out with each other directly, honestly, openly. And it seems like things that might come up on this list, that come up on this list, would be the perfect place to have check in. Like, these are the things I'm noticing and learn from them. Each of you learn
Absolutely.
from
And
them.
probably if it's a narcissist, they're going to deny all or twist it on you
Mm,
or trigger you.
right?
If it's a healthy
Mm-hmm.
relationship, I think that you should date forever, right? Even when you're married, you should date. And I think it's
Yes,
important to carve out that time often and talk about past fond memories, talk about a present compliment. Hey, I really like how you're doing this week or currently or now. And then talk about something to look forward to in the future. That's a healthy relationship. A
beautiful.
toxic, narcissistic, high conflict relationship, the communication's not there. The thing
No,
is that, and that's actually a sign. If you can't even have that type of conversation, then you know what you're up against.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said, which is a really salient point, and that is that, if somebody's trying to decide, is this healthy? Am I in a narcissistic relationship? Am I being gaslit? You know, you'll get a lot of information from a conversation that you're most likely trying to have, but can't really have because all you're getting back is resistance or anger or stubbornness or gaslighting or worse, right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
I can add that like if someone is trying to break up or have the divorce talk, I do encourage them to record that conversation. Not that you're
Mm.
recording it for court purposes, but for your own sake, so that you can go back and listen. If they say, well, you never said that, you listen to it. Wait, I did say that. Or you can listen. You might be so nervous because it's such an important conversation. You didn't hear what they said. So I do encourage people to record that type of conversation if they think, wait, they're saying I didn't say that, but I feel like I did. You record it, right? For your own mindset.
Yes, that's really, really helpful. Before we take a commercial break, I just want to say that I've worked with so many couples over the years, and when I used to do that work in person, and that conversation, I said this, no, you didn't. I didn't hear that. That's not what I said. Like, that is just so common.
Yes.
And I know it can be confrontive I mean, you can record without your partner knowing, but my preference is everybody is aware. And
Right.
that
But
can
you're
be
not doing it to then
confrontive,
call
but
them out on it. You're doing
right.
it to
For
verify
your
with
own,
yourself that I talk about you knowing your truth, and we can talk
yes.
more about that, but you're doing it for yourself, not even to then put it back at them.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes we say things and we think we said something and we said something else, didn't come out right. And the way things land on the other person is often different than the way we intended it. That
Yeah.
that is for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a great place to pause. Cliffhanger. We will come back to this important topic. We'll be right back after our commercial break. Okay, we are back with Come Back to Love Radio. We are talking about some really important topics today with Dr. Susan Korb Bernstein, who is a divorce coach specializing in high conflict divorce and also divorce when there is a special needs child. Susan, your work is so important. I mean, we know that 50%, sadly, of couples' first marriages end in divorce, and it only goes up from there when there's a second and a third marriage. Oh my gosh, that's a whole topic in and of itself. I heard you say yesterday when we were not on live radio that you have 200 clients that you work with maybe at any given time. We need you cloned probably about 100-fold, but there's only you. Um, we were just talking about such an important piece of evaluating, what kind of person when it's something's feeling off in a relationship. I mean, if it's high conflict, it's often clear, but sometimes it's not. And so you gave a wonderful exercise to have everybody really evaluate like what's happening, how are things going, what am I noticing, what are the themes? And yeah, it's just so important. And I keep bringing the overlay of come back to love, my mantra and business name and work, into this work because I feel like in an interesting way, and maybe it's more direct even than what I'm saying right now, but your work is all about come back to love.
Yes.
Really. It's it's really, I mean, how do you take this high conflict, difficult situation and attempt to get, or maybe do get people on the same page and able to have a conversation that impacts them and impacts their children so
Yes.
powerfully.
And I do agree what you said about, it starts with yourself, right? And so I tell people that one of the best things about a breakup or divorce is that you get to look at yourself and say, what parts of myself did I lose in that relationship that I want to bring back? What parts do I like that I want to keep going that are still here? And who have I always wanted to be that now I have the opportunity to bring those new things in? And so it's really, creating that butterfly and it's awesome to help clients do that, whether they're men or women, create the new them, the better version of themselves. And I often talk about with an ex not letting them ruin your chance for future love. You're giving them the power to do that. If you say, I'm never dating anyone else, I'm not doing it, they ruined it. Well, now you're giving them power, your ex, power to affect your future. Why would you do that?
That's true. That's true. Wow. Yeah, that's powerful. Any advice for people that are feeling like that, that are like, I'm done. And of course I hear that a lot too, right? I'm done. I did that. I got so hurt. I got
Yeah.
beaten down. I don't, we could go on. Yeah.
A couple things. Number one, I do an analogy related to the trash. My garbage pickup is Tuesdays and Fridays. When I take my trash out, I don't go back and check the trash can. It's out there. So if you try to have the mindset that your ex is your garbage, you're done with them, and don't check their social media, don't drive by their new place of where they live, just move forward. And the advice as far as moving forward is pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, right? By human nature, people feel comfort in staying where they are. Change is scary, but it's an opportunity. So anytime I have a friend or client who has a breakup or a divorce or, is post-divorce and back in the dating world, well, you have to push yourself forward, right? You just keep pushing forward. It's not giving up. It's having that grit and determination. And as I joke, there's a top for every pot, right? And in reality, there's no more than one. I don't believe in one soulmate for everyone. There's even more than one person. So
Mm.
having you find the ability to find your next partner, your match is very likely and out there, but you have to push yourself. It's not going to happen if you're sitting at home on the couch watching TV.
That's for sure. Yes. And that extends directly into my work, of course. Yeah, that's a great analogy. You take your trash out. I take mine out on Sunday nights, and I don't go back digging through it and looking through it. But it is a pattern that we have in our culture to keep revisiting things that are difficult.
Yeah.
And it does take, like you said, grit and determination and a strong intention to have what you want in your life and know that it's possible.
Absolutely. And, I love my post-divorce sessions for my clients post-divorce. A lot of them are on co-parenting or, hey, let's prepare you to go back to court with your attorney and enforce the agreement if it's not being followed, or new place to live or new job. But the post-divorce dating is my favorite. And I really do talk to people about, I want you to think of the three top things you want in your next partner and the three things you definitely don't want. And if you're on a dating app and they have any of the three things you don't want, you swipe the other way. Don't say, but everything else is good. Nope, they have one of your three ones, swipe the other way. And then if they do have the three things you want, give that person a chance. Even if there might be some things that you have a question mark, if they have your three biggest qualities you want, give them a chance and talk to them. So I really helping with three. Someone could have a list of 15. You can go out with that person and there's not a connection, right? Because you need more than just the 15 on the checkbox. So if we pick our three favorite and see if there's a connection, you're creating that possible opportunity.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, tell us a little bit, because that was a little bit of a new topic for me, like post-divorce. I forgot the word you use now, like trauma, basically, like things that can happen after. I think it's really important for listeners to hear it because I think sometimes people think like, okay, it's over, like it's done, and often and hopefully it is, and everything's okay and smooth at that point, but I know it doesn't always work out that way.
So there's two components to it. So one is that I'm certified as post-divorce transition and recovery, helping people to that next chapter.
Hmm.
Ideally, people find me pre-divorce or during divorce, so they don't have issues in post-divorce. But if they
Right.
do, I'm their person. I help them through it. The other component is in the high conflict divorce realm. there is a topic called post-separation abuse or post-divorce abuse. And ideally, amicable divorces, you sign the agreement, you put it in the drawer, you never look back. Sure, it's our child's birthday, let's just do it together. Or sure, you want Saturday, I'll take Sunday, we'll switch. It's easy. But in a high conflict, it's not, the word easy doesn't exist. So ideally, you have a contract that has a lot of details and a very strong default section if they're not following it. But that abuse continues post-divorce from the abuser and often even worse. A lot of times people are so worried about the physical custody of children. My child has to be with me. My ex is, a problem, an abuser, toxic, etc. They forget to worry about the legal custody, which is decision making. And if you give a toxic person decision making power, it can make your life and that child's life absolutely miserable, because they will have a say or a final say in all decisions until that child is of emancipation age. And if it's a special needs child and they're going to be dependent forever, it's a lifelong dealing with a partner who probably one of the reasons you got divorced is you don't agree. And now you have to have shared decision making.
Right. And you have to have it for really the rest of your life.
Yeah, if you have children together, I talk to
If you have
people
children,
about
yeah.
if it's just finances, then you can do what's called gray rock, where once you separate finances, you're a gray rock. You're not shiny. You give them no reason to come look back, right?
Mm.
But if you have children together, we talk about what's called yellow rock. And yellow rock is where you have to communicate because you are, quote, co-parenting. Sometimes I teach my clients how to parallel parent, where you look like you're co-parenting, but in reality, you're parallel parenting. But where you respond in canned responses, where you respond as the responsible parent, but you only respond in a business-like manner. When do you respond? How do you respond? And documentation. And so that's a big thing I do as the high conflict divorce coach is help people document so that their ex cannot twist things around or say things that are not true.
You just mentioned something that struck with me, a chord with me, and that is I had an amicable divorce, and thank God. Not that it wasn't still wrought with emotion and some difficulty and some decisions I made that, frankly, at the time weren't necessarily the best because I didn't have Vesta and a whole team of people supporting me, and that's okay. Um, but this parallel parenting versus co parenting, that's a really interesting distinction. And I think sometimes people think that they're co parenting when actually what they're doing is parallel parenting. And so it sounds like sometimes you're suggesting that.
Yeah,
Um,
so there's a lot of lines here,
yeah,
right? There's the line of micromanaging someone, and there's a line of protecting a child from abuse, right? And those are two different
yes,
things, right?
right.
And so helping your client figure out why are you trying to control what goes on under the roof of your ex when your child's there? Is it because you're
Mhm.
micromanaging or because you're worried about your child's safety? And if you're micromanaging, we have to let it go. That no judge wants to hear that they didn't have vegetables or they didn't take a bath or they watched TV too late. The judges have more important stuff. But if it's related to abuse or neglect, then we need to document and we need to expedite and make sure the child's safe. So if it's somewhere in between, then it's parallel parenting, right? If you're not liking how your ex is parenting the child, but there's no abuse and neglect, then you need to appear on whether it's a parenting app or email or text or however you communicate, that you're co parenting. Hey, it's picture day. I put in to get 2 pictures so you can have one also. Hey, the band concert is coming. Please make sure they're practicing 15 minutes each day. And, I'll get there and I'll save extra seats for you. Right. So you always have to know that if your ex did take you back to court or did try to modify or something in court, that your documentation looks like you are trying to share information, you're not trying to withhold information, and you're not trying to withhold your child. Yet, under your own roof, you're doing what you want. If you think a different eating style, a different television schedule, a different get, you have the right to do that. So helping them identify how they can parent the way they want, how they can protect their child if need be under the other home, and how they can present to look like they're doing shared decision making, yet they're not always doing exactly the same thing.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, I can see in a high conflict divorce situation like how powerful that those distinctions are.
Yes.
And I can see a not high conflict divorce, but just a separation
Mhm.
and a sharing of children, how there's a big distinction between micromanaging,
Yeah.
guilty as charged right here a long time ago when I was younger. Because it's really hard to let go of the control when you're separating and your children are not in your own home. And, there's so much trust
Yeah.
that goes into letting go and being in allowance of what is. But that distinction of micromanaging versus, yeah, just to think about, I guess, to do a self inquiry on why that might be the case if it's happening. Yeah, and the piece that the reason why I like the distinction is because I'm so attuned to the energies of life and our communication, our as humans communication, and when one person is parallel parenting and the other person is co-parenting and thinking that the other person is also co-parenting, then there's like this energetic conflict or dissonance maybe and disconnect. And I don't think it's, at least in my world until this moment, I don't feel like it's actually been named as
Mhm.
such. And I know that it can create actually difficult feelings or frustration on either side. And the clarity of like, no, I'm actually parallel parenting, and that's what we both should be doing. Or actually, I'm not co parenting with you. I thought I was, but I'm not. Because co is a coming together and collaborating and making decisions together. So, yeah, those distinctions I think are just so important in life, period. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people bring this up and they're just in their relationship. They're not separated and they're like, I'm trying to co with my partner. And he or she is living like a parallel. I actually talked to couples about like, there's this parallel to stance and then there's this, facing forward and being together in life. And
Absolutely.
both are important, but doing them at the same time
Yeah.
actually really
And
helps.
and with an ex, it's really also about setting boundaries, right?
Mhm.
Knowing what
Yeah,
your comfort level is and setting
right,
boundaries and establishing those so that, you're not consumed by your ex.
right, right. Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. That's kind of a hot topic. I
Yeah.
wonder, and I'd be curious to hear from your perspective, Susan, that there are some people, and I don't know how long you see your clients post separation or divorce with this body of work that you're really passionate about. I wonder, I I think just from, doing my own work as a therapist and a coach, but I'm curious again what you have to say about some energetic connections that just hold on and hold on and hold on that then prevent people from actually stepping away and having their own relationship. And how does somebody know that that's actually happening?
I again use analogies, and one of them is if your life was a pizza pie and your ex is allowed one slice if you have children together. If there's no children together, there's no reason your ex even needs to be on your pizza pie.
Right.
But your ex is only allowed one slice. You have your potential new partner, you have your children, you have your extended family, you have your job, you have your hobbies, you have your alone time, you have your friends. And so you have all these slices, and making sure that your ex does not overflow into those other slices. And so, really, dealing with any fireballs that are thrown in a high conflict situation post divorce or during divorce, and prioritizing what to deal with as well. And so, going back to boundaries, knowing all the different hats you wear and your ex's place and keeping them in that single slice of the rest of your pizza pie.
You're great with metaphors, Susan. Now I want some pizza. But that's really helpful. I think that it's very, from my perspective, from my chair, I think it's very subtle, and it's a subconscious energy that is hard sometimes to recognize, and that somebody who's gotten divorced and has been divorced for, let's say 10 years and isn't, or 8 years, 5 years, 8 years, isn't in a relationship yet. And wondering why, it's just a place of inquiry. Like, yeah, how much energetic and emotional space is my ex still taking up in my life, in my energy field, emotionally? And maybe it's not intentional, but there's just this continued connection that doesn't then leave space for a new partner to come in.
And they're an ex for a reason. And I'm
Yeah.
not, even though I have my doctorate, I'm not a therapist, but I tell people I don't want you to repress your ex and never think about them, because we all know repression is not good. But give yourself permission. Let's say you brush your teeth twice a day, and you're supposed to brush your teeth for at least 2 minutes each time, right? That's what the people say. Morning and
Right.
night, 2 minutes. Tell yourself, I will allow myself to think of my ex in the morning for 2 minutes when I'm brushing my teeth, and at night for 2 minutes when I'm brushing my teeth. And throughout the day, if my ex pops into my mind, I'm going to put that thought in my pocket. And I'm going to say, I'm only going to think about this tonight or tomorrow morning when I brush. And that way, just controlling when you're allowed to, giving yourself a little permission, but not more than 4 minutes a day.
I love that. That's the benefit of not being a therapist. Is like just stating it in a very behavioral way, very concrete boundaries. Like, I love that. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
thank you for sharing that with our listeners and also with me. That's great. As a therapist, and now I work as a coach, but of course it's who I am. There's always like a massaging and looking, and I love the clarity. Like,
Yes.
4 minutes, that's good. Now I'm done. All right, let's go on a commercial break. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back for the final segment with Dr. Susan Korb Bernstein. This has been really so educational. I'm really grateful for you and your presence here, and I hope that our listeners, whether they're, you know, contemplating divorce, going through it, or on the other side of it, or just, in relationship and thinking about how things are going, that they've really grabbed some very helpful tips, specific and great metaphors to help them think through what's happening in their lives. I always suggest people re-listen and download episodes because they're just chock full of tips and insights and really, really important information. I mean, our relationships are everything in our lives. Everything, you know?
Yeah.
It's like the quality of our lives is based on the quality of our relationships. And so this work that you're doing, that I'm doing, is so, so important in our lives. So how do people find you and connect with you?
I give everyone my phone number. I offer that complimentary call, 551-444-2609. They can also schedule a time on my website, which is divorcecoachplus.com. Plus, I have a new website for anyone who has a special needs child and they're going through divorce, and it's divorcewithspecialneedschildren.com. So my main website, divorcecoachplus.com, or divorcewithspecialneedschildren.com.
Hmm. So easy to find you. Those are things are so easy to remember. They'll also will be posted below our YouTube page and also on Dream Vision 7 on our episode page. So you'll be able to have those in writing. And I think you have a special gift for our listeners.
Absolutely. So anyone who mentions you, Robyn, and this podcast that Come Back to Love, they will get 10% off if they buy the package of 5. But of course, they get the free consult first to see what they'd be buying and see how it would be helpful to them.
Right. So wonderful. Well, I know you have a full life and a full schedule, and you also have room for more clients and more consultations. And so I really want to encourage any listeners that are questioning and wondering if this work is what they're needing, that they reach out to you. Yeah, so
Thank you
important.
so much. Thank you for your time. I was really happy to be here and share with your audience.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. And shout out to our listeners. This is Come Back to Love Radio on Dream Vision 7. We are live Thursdays, 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a beautiful day, everybody.